Well, we're filming. I'm here. I'm live. First things first, man. I always start my podcast like this. I'm a little corny. I like
be corny.
I mean, I can't help it.
Whatever works for you. Fuck everyone else.
Well, look, dude. This is obviously kind of journalistic work, but I usually treat it as a way to get to know the people that I really admire and really love.
Cool.
Your music has meant a lot to me for a variety of reasons, and I've been a fan for a few years now, but I feel like in the last couple of years when I've kind of learned more about you as a person and the things that have maybe gone into the songs that you've written and the things that you're writing the songs about even have made me get closer to your music. And I feel like I know you in a weird way, just of how much I've really kind of studied everything that you've written about and how much it's really directly resonated to me. So first things first, just thank you for being a creative person and choosing to kind of make that your life at this moment. And because it's done so much for me, and I want to get into all the things I think it's done for other people, but just to kind of give you a little, I guess, start it off, I think that the safe space that you've provided within your music and your shows, and more so, is really beautiful. And I just want to thank you for doing that and the work that you've done. First things first, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, a safe space, yeah. That's all I want.
I think that's all I want to.
I mean, that's why I started the band, was to not feel alone anymore. I felt very alone and lost. So I went out and I seeked to find myself and the safety of others. And that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Do you find that people kind of come to you with these seemingly pretty personal connections? I mean, I know that the nature of your music may lead to that, but does this happen to you a lot?
Yeah. I mean, it depends. Every day I feel connected, but it's about me connecting. That's the only way I'm going to create the art that I want to create, is if I make sure that I am seeking to connect to the universe, to the canvas or the record or whatever it is that I'm making. It's that I connect. Like, all you can do is set a framework, right? A framework that allows either a landscape or a mirror. You see yourself in that, or you are allowed a pathway in which to explore yourself. But that's all you can offer someone. You don't know me.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
At all.
At all.
And that's not a dig or like, I'm happy for you to know me, and you're knowing me now.
Sure.
As much as I can offer.
You're willing, yeah.
But like, you don't know me. Hopefully, my narrative is allowing you to know yourself more. It's a reflection. It's a wall which a snare comes off of, or a light well that allows some light in to see the ground. If you look into the pitch black darkness of the ocean, you fear the depth, right? But it's only actually the allowance of light that gives you the sense of depth.
Mm-hmm.
So with anything, if I can just give you a sense of light, or a sense of reflection, or a sense of narrative, and a storyline is a pathway. It's like my A to B. And then my A to B gives you a sense of perspective from someone else. You are now not alone, because I've told you my grief. And that me sharing my grief allows you in to share your grief, to see your grief, and to understand its capacity. How big my grief is how big yours is.
Mm-hmm.
Dependent. If you've never heard of grief before. But of course you have. But the more we listen, the more we learn. And like, all I can do is add a framework to your night tonight, and hopefully you'll see a bit more of yourself in there. It ain't about me, it's about you. And the only reason we're here tonight is because of those people outside.
Yeah.
Not me. They don't know me. I don't know them. But all we know together is love and pain and all of our experiences amalgamated into one thing. And if you allow yourself to melt within the framework, that's where the love is, and that's where the magic is.
I love that. I mean, and I'll give you a specific example of a time that your band has done that for me, and it really was probably the moment that opened my eyes to a new layer. It was last year when you guys were on tour, came to New Orleans with a Reset concert series, your LCD kind of series there. She actually, shout out to the person behind the camera here, who was the person who told me about it, wanted to go see Boy Genius. And I was like, let's go. But hey, the day before, IDLES are playing, and I got to go see IDLES. And I don't know that she was a fan at the time, but got into you guys up until that show. So I was thinking I was going for me. I'm like, I'm going to go for my band, and tomorrow's going to be your band. And then I learned in that moment that she loved this band. And it really, frankly, made me fall deeper in love with this person, because I realized just how accessible this music was to specifically women in a lot of ways, and a lot of hardcore, or whatever you want to call it, heavier. I mean, even guitar music isn't always catered towards that direction or even accessible towards them. And that got me kind of emotional in that moment, of being like, this is a safe space. Like, this is wild. And she was going crazy, and it kind of prevented me from going crazy, because I'm just watching what's happening. And it was a really cool moment, man, like a really, really powerful moment for me, and kind of strengthened our relationship and my relationship to this band. And that was great. I love that. So, I mean, to that point, can you just talk about, the importance of like feminism and creating a safe space for women, queer people, I guess anything but what I am, which is a straight white male in a lot of, ultimately in every way. What does it mean to kind of create that space for people and for it to exist within the world that you live in? Because it's made it's gotten better. I mean, I know punk rock in the 80s and the 90s could be pretty gnarly. My mom was a punk in the 90s and the 80s, and it was kind of rough. It wasn't the most, wasn't the easiest place for her to be. I mean, in a lot of ways it was, but it was pretty sexist. So can you just speak on the importance of that and your contribution to it?
Yeah. There's different levels to it, I guess. When we started the band, we are children of neoliberalism, which is like a fucking sleeper, insidious cancer that's infested the left and turning it into an apathetic, discombobulated, disenfranchised left with no real direction in a lot of senses. Mm-hmm. Now there are lots of amazing activists and beautiful minds and speakers that are leading us forward, but in the general sense of the populace, there's a real discombobulated left. Mm-hmm. And I'm not an activist. I'm an artist. The two aren't separate. I know that, but I just wouldn't consider myself. I know musicians who are activists, and I very much admire them. But what I wanted to do, as I said before, is create a place in which I felt safe and not alone in order to move forward. I was in a very dark place. Not averagely dark place, very dark place. Not just grief, violence, drugs, crime, the stuff, the real stuff. And I was also an abusive prick, and I was abusive to myself and other people, and I wanted to stop because I was losing people that I loved, literally and figuratively. And I looked to start something beautiful, and I did. Politically, I am left, not centrist left, and I wanted to cut through the neoliberal nightmare that we were and are in. There was a coalition that was just signed in our country when the band was getting somewhere. We were started to write half decent songs. Nick Clegg, the rat that he is, sold his coalition off to the Tory government, and which started our 15-year descent into hell, which is where we're at now in Brexit. And the poor are literally starving in our country, running out of food and food banks. And the rich are richer than they've ever been, and the poor are poorer than they've ever been, literally, since like the war. So I just wanted to kind of use that platform that I had found to feel safe and move toward getting as many people in as possible. Along the way, I wrote songs. I wanted to be a cheerleader, and I wanted to start a communion of people that just felt safe to breathe and be themselves, because I feel that the facets of love are what are the tools to end fascism. We are in a fascist state. You're in a fascist state. I'm in a fascist state. No doubt about that. And I want my daughter to come up with a narrative that is clear of love and power. And I just can only do that by what I know and what my mother taught me and what my father taught me. My father, as an artist, taught me about dedication and narrative through artistic language, and what socialism is as a facet of love. And my mother taught me the power of love, the true power of love, and the true power of vulnerability and giving yourself to the world. And she's the best thing I've ever known. And I wanted to carry that forward in my music. And that meant that my narrative and my artistic language had to be cliched. It had to be seamless in my motivation. I did not want to hide behind poetry, and I did not want to dilute my power of love with any sense of flowery fucking bullshit. Because the right had their slogans, and the right had their narrative set in fucking concrete, and the fear and the scared would run into the right in their droves. Because blaming other people is easy.
It's way easier, yeah.
Telling the poor, this is their problem, you're the problem, that, you know, it creates a sense of mania that's easy to latch onto. And as an artist and as a person who's full of love and empathy, I can only turn my back on fascism, and I wanted to create my own slogans and my own clarity and my own communion and my own mania of love and empathy. And that includes all people that are willing to walk forward with us with love and empathy. If you don't, get the fuck out of the boat. If you can, let's dance.
I love it. I lost my mom when I was 18. She was a drinker my whole life. Best person I ever knew. You know, I am who I am because of her. I love horror movies because of her. I would even agree with you in that I know how to love because of her. I didn't know my dad growing up. It was, to this date, the hardest thing I've ever had to go through, was losing her. But it's really brought me closer to the parts of her that I want to emulate and be. You know, I know that you have a special relationship, had a special relationship with your mother, and I just, you know, without digging too deep or, you know, tearing up anything and sensitive, I was curious as to how often, you know, you've almost touched it to a degree, this is considered, because I know with me, my mom's with me every day. I'm not like a religious person, but I can feel her, and I everything I do is for her, and I love that. I love that, and I don't know that I would have that if she was still here. Granted, I would still want her here at the end of every day, but again, I think losing her brought me closer to the things that I wanted to be and pull from her. Do you have anything to add to that, or is there some, is there, I mean, even as simple as, is there a song that you think that she would have loved that you wrote? I mean, how often do these things play throughout your head?
I don't think, I never thought about that ever. I've never thought about what songs my mum would like or anything like that. Because it's something I've made and she's not here.
Yeah.
What I feel is that I do this a lot. I think about one of the reasons why I am so, what's the word, complete, is because of my daughter. And I have my daughter on average 3 days a week when I'm home, if I'm not on tour. And the most beautiful and precious thing I have in my life is all the things I've lost, because it adds perspective, the dark and the light again. When I put my daughter down to sleep at night, I put my head on her chest and I hear her heartbeat, and I often cry because I think about how powerful my role is in her life and how vulnerable she is to me, and how I can really the fragility of a child makes you realize just how fucking easy it is to be a bad person or a bad influence on someone.
Yeah.
Or, and that's what adds the importance and the weight in my life at the moment. Is like doing the right thing for her, to her, like just the words I use, the way I walk lighter with her, I give her time, I give her so much more patience. And I have so much less patience for the rest of the world sometimes because I spend it on her, and I realize she deserves more. Her generation deserve more, and I think about things like putting her down to sleep at night, how difficult that would be as a Palestinian father right now, how impossible that is in a fucking, in a corner of a fucking zone, obliterated by disgusting fascist monster. And I don't know, it gives me all this weight. And then I think about these things and I cry because I realize how lucky I am, because I've lost so much and I know how beautiful it is, and my role is a gift, and I'm so grateful. And when that happens, I realised how lucky I was to have a mother, as you say, that taught me perspective and love. And she genuinely would dance in the face of pain and struggle. She was a very, very beautiful, powerful woman. So I think about how lucky I am that she was in my life. I don't think about what she would have liked that I've done. She did enough for me already. I don't put her through my music. But I think about her a lot, yeah. And I think you're right. I think I've got faith because of her, I don't have religious faith necessarily, but her energy is within me, and it's definitely within my daughter, and it's in it's in the air between myself and my daughter, and my partner now, and the energy between us is what I learnt from her. So our mothers are in us,
Yeah.
and we literally shared cells with our parents, with our mothers. Sorry, like that's a scientific fact. So
yeah,
they will always live on.
Well, thank you.
That's beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that with me,
course.
by the way. I want to switch gears to something a little funner, and this could actually just be this might just be a no. You might just be like, no, I'm not. But are you a professional wrestling fan? No?
No.
Okay, because I've noticed the pro wrestling references in some of your music, and I didn't know if that was you kind of referring back to your fandom as a kid. I know a lot of kids watch wrestling growing up and stuff.
I mean, maybe when I was like, I'm very old. You know, like Hulk Hogan, and the Ultimate Warrior, Coco Beware. Do you know what I mean?
You name out Ted DiBiase, and we got Stone Cold references.
So there's a guy, there's a theorist, semiologist called Roland Barthes, who wrote a bunch of essays that ended up being a book called Mythologies. And in that book of mythologies, there was an essay called, what the fuck was it called? I think it's called The World of Wrestling. Don't quote me on that. And in it, it's about the idea that the embodiment of good and evil was in wrestling. And how, you know, you had the good guy and the bad guy. And how invested an audience is in that. And I find that very inspiring thing. The beautiful thing about mythologies was that Roland Barthes was really good at it, in like explaining the complexities of communication in our world, in our popular world now, very simply. And you can walk away from that book understanding things a lot better. It made me a much better writer as a student, and yeah, it helped me a lot. But I like that idea of theatre, you know. And I like that idea of giving people the dramas of the world in a very simplistic way, and capturing human nature as boldly and as brutally as possible.
Oh, I could go on and on. I'm a big wrestling fan, like currently, which is why I asked. I was like, oh, maybe he is.
You're currently a fan?
Yeah, dude. I currently watch it. I actually
wouldn't know
like
any wrestlers now. No, fuck no.
You probably would recognize like one, maybe. You know Cody Rhodes? He's like the most popular guy. All right, well there you go. Yeah,
I mean, it is a thing in the UK, but
it's not nearly as big.
No. It was when I was a kid in the 80s.
Yeah,
it was like big time.
British Bulldog.
Maybe kids probably watch it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's still it's there, but it's funny because there have been. I mean, wrestling in the '90s was really sexist. I mean, it was some of the worst shit ever. You know, it was like the women weren't even called women; they were just called divas the whole time. And now they have proper women's championships and stuff like that. But I've almost weirdly drawn, because it's a kind of a freak art. You know, it's a little weird. And sometimes I tell people I like wrestling, and they're like, really? And I would get the same reaction when I liked punk rock when I was younger. Yeah. And similarly, both of these things have had kind of renaissance recently, where they've had to become more inclusive, because I think, like you said, the centrist left, especially in the United States, have looked at them and been like, hey, this actually isn't nearly as progressive as we thought it was at one point. And like both of those things have kind of changed at the same time.
Yeah. Good, yeah. You say, some say inclusive, some say humane.
Right, yeah. The fact that
but I don't know anything about it to comment.
Fair.
Yeah, the times they are changing.
Yeah. To that point, man, it seems like you've kind of, I'm going to make an assumption that maybe this is a big deal for you or something that made you really proud, but you recently played with the Walkmen. Oh, they're going to play with them. Have you talked to them yet? Or
Yeah. I came to New York for a week to watch them do their residency at Webster Hall.
Okay. Because they're just recently a band again, which is super exciting. Yeah.
So I watched them like 3 times. I was going to watch them 5 times, but then I didn't want to ruin it. I'm not. But the promoter was like, oh, because we had the same promoter. She was like, do you want to meet them? And I was like, nah, I'm not. I don't want to ruin the illusion or embarrass myself, you know?
Yeah.
But then later on, I ended up doing a collaboration with DS and Durga, which is a perfume company in Brooklyn. And David, the guy who runs it, is good friends with Hamilton Lighthouser. So the link happened. I ended up meeting him. He surprised me on a day, and he's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a beer together, and I love him. And now I've met Pete as well, and like we're like lovely guys. They actually, that's it. They came to Bristol. They played in Bristol, and that's where we met up in a pub, and yeah, they're fucking great.
Meet your idols, right? That's
Always.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. I don't separate the artist from the art. So I want to meet my idols. If they're assholes, I just won't listen to them, or I'll steal their music. You know. You know?
I agree. Yeah.
I just remembered the reason I had to go back and think about the lyrics. So the Steve Austin lyric, was inspired by a story I read about, because I was before Steve. I was like 6 when I got into wrestling. I stopped. Only because I got into like, I used to collect phone cards and shit. Do you know what phone cards are?
No.
Anyway, so Stone Cold Steve Austin, he posted something about homophobes, and I was inspired by that. I thought that's cool. There's a guy, he's Texas, right? He's from Texas.
Stone Cold?
Texan.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
He just seems like, you know, a guy that has, what's the word? Gone against the stereotype. You know, he seems like a pretty cool enough guy. I just like the idea of that song was about using masculine tropes and murky in the waters, and kind of just using stereotypes on either side for liberals and Colin.
It's accessible.
Colin, fucking Conor McGregor and shit.
Yeah, there's another one I had to ask. Yeah.
Dancing around stereotypes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's where the lyrics come from. The Walkmen are the reason I started a band. And sorry, I got to explain. I woke up just before doing this interview.
It's okay.
I was asleep for like 2 hours.
You're killing it.
My head's a bit fucking...
I'm also hitting you with like...
I went I'm all over the place. I went and saw the Rothko Chapel earlier, and it blew my mind.
It's amazing. I've had many emotional experiences in there.
Yeah, I cried like a baby.
Yeah.
But I needed to sleep after that, so...
It's all good.
The Walkmen are the reason I'm in a band, and their first album saved my life in some ways.
Bows and Arrows?
Yeah, and to be able to play a show with them is very humbling, and to know them as people is a beautiful thing. I'm very grateful. I don't know all. I've only met two of them, and they're wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah, things are starting to become a lucid dream. You know, like things that you can only imagine yourself as a younger person going, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could do that? And now we're doing those things.
I can relate.
You know?
Yeah.
Doing podcasts, things like that, you know? This is a world now where I'm being listened to. And that's a gift. That's not something to not sit back afterwards and go, I'm lucky. I fucking fought for 10 years with no one listening. And doing this because I loved it. Not because of I didn't want fucking flowers. I didn't want, like, it was about me connecting to the universe and not going down the other pathway and ended up in prison or hospital or worse. And now I'm allowed a platform where I get to have conversations with you and people will listen to this. And that's not something to fucking forget. It's just how lucky that is. So the Walkman is a huge thing, but we got to do it first.
I'm apologies that I thought that you had already played with them at this
don't
point.
worry, man.
Yeah,
You have your
love
own
that
life.
band. Oh,
it's
hey.
all right. You're invited to the show.
I would love to go. Yeah, what I was saying when I relate is that I'm making a documentary right now about a pro wrestler, shocker, and I've been following him.
Pro wrestler, who?
Booker T. Do you know Booker T?
Yeah, I know Booker T.
Oh, okay. So I've been following him for 2 years. I'm making a documentary about him.
Sick.
It's really cool. Yeah.
So he's from my era.
So there you go. Yeah, he actually lives in Houston, so he's a local dude. But I had a moment about a couple weeks ago where he's like, "Yeah, man, I got to take this footage and I'll show it to WWE and we'll get approval." And this is a little bit of a spoiler because not a lot of people know I'm doing this yet. But was one of those moments where I'm like, that's like a video game mission that I would have gotten when I was growing up. Like, go visit, you know, Triple H and show him your footage. Like, I used to play Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and I was like making a skate video the other day for Volcom, and just these two things back to back, I was like, wow. Like, I just couldn't help but stop and just want to be grateful because, you know, man, like, and it leads to my next question is, it can be rough, like, to stay positive, like really, really rough for me at least. And I have to have these moments of reminding myself, especially since, you know, my mom did that for me a lot. Like, she told me, like, hey, you're doing a good doing this. A lot of that has to come internally now. Like, I have to remind myself of all the things that I've done. And music like yours helps me do that. But to that point, do you find it in a world with so much, you know, negativity and, you know, fascism, frankly, you know, do you find it easier or harder to love?
I don't think that's the question.
Okay.
No offense.
No.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Love is always there, man. Like, I've been through darker times than this, personally. And, like, whether that's selfish or not, I don't give a fuck. Looking after my mum before her death became more and more nightmarish for different reasons. She was losing her sense of hope and strength, as she should. She was very ill. But there were times that were rough. You know, there was one Christmas where it was just me and her, and I mean, I won't go into the details, but it was one of the toughest times I've ever had in my life. And, you know, because she was disabled, she couldn't walk properly, and her legs started to swell up and they were bleeding, and she basically shit herself. And, like, you know, cleaning up that mess is demoralizing for a beautiful woman, and it's demoralizing for her son, you know. But I saw power in that, and I reflect on that with beauty, really, you know, being able to look after someone who looked after you for so long is a gift. But it's tough, you know, shit like that is tough. And I know people are going through worse things, yada yada, I know that. But it's times like that where you're truly alone, where you realize how important love is, you know, like, you have to love, there's like a unanimous love that comes from situations like that, where obviously I love her and obviously she loves me, but there's something beyond that where you have to strive through it. You have to see a light and work towards something that isn't there. I knew she was dying. That's no light. And I was, you know, I was an addict, and I was, you know, I'd lost, or, you know, I'd ruined all my relationships. And, you know, I had a band that was playing to 30 people, and I had to find a power in the love that was there within, that had no horizon. It was about getting up in the morning and looking at what you're grateful for. Not, you know, it was about being a short-sighted kind of drive, you know, where you're like, just, there is love there, and I am working towards tonight and going to sleep, but I'm going to get through it. And, like, that's a really powerful lesson to learn. Is that, like, no matter what happens to me, I'll always have love, but having purpose and having a sense of energy behind that purpose is the toughest thing, because you know, life is fucking ruthless, whether you want it to be or not. You don't decide. One day you will be fucking smashed in the face. You got no choice. You either give up or you keep going. And that's when you look within and you find that fucking light, that power of love that you've been carrying all your life and learning about. Sometimes not a lot, but it's there. You just don't give up. And when I look around, you know, like, the internet is very heavy on the side of negativity, because it's driven by a lot of disenfranchised, angry men who are being sexually or not violent, and just, but they're all scared. And scared people do fucked up things, and lonely people do fucked up things, and it's a very problematic platform, but it's also a beautiful network of people that have carried us as a band and have probably connected us, you and I.
It's true.
And you know, if you look at the negative side of it, there's a lot of shit that I'm worried about. You know, I've got a 5-year-old daughter to bring up, and I don't have a fucking playbook that's been passed on by my parents on how to deal with all that. It's insane. And but there's a lot, there's a good side, and like the politics and what's happening in Gaza right now, and like what's happening in Britain, what's happening in the United States, what's happening in Central Africa, like there's shit going on now, neoliberalism, and fucking the chaos behind all of that. If you put it all in one big mass of ideological terror, yeah, it's a mountain to climb. But we are on this earth, and we can choose to leave at any time. But I would rather use the map that I've been given by the people that love me, and the energy that I've been given by the people that love me, to move forward with love, empathy, and grace. And I know I'm on the right side of history. I'm going to keep going. And like, fuck them. It ain't a mountain. It's, you know, just one day at a time.
Yeah.
So it isn't about whether it's harder to love. It's just whether it's harder to see the light, you know? Because the love's always there. But it's fucking sometimes, I don't know, it's chaos at the moment. And like, I've got all the love to give, but sometimes I don't know where to turn, you know? I think my only advice would be, don't read the comments.
That's definitely good advice.
Because that's where the incels lie.
Yeah.
You know, that's where the fucking...
the faceless...
the idiot
yeah.
men, and there are obviously other people that are assholes too. But it's just so much... That's where they sit. And, you know, like, a lot of people's perspective on the internet is from the discourse, the dialogue, sorry. And the discourse from that dialogue. But that all comes from the disenfranchised. It's like fucking... Basically, the whole internet can be analogized by TripAdvisor. If I have a fucking great time, if I'm having fun in a restaurant, I don't go afterwards and comment on how great a night I had on the fucking TripAdvisor. It's the people that are fucking disenfranchised, have got way too much time on their hands, Karens and fucking narcs, to go on and be like, and that's what all these mad incel dudes are. They're just people with too much time on their hands and a fucking boatload of fear and resentment. Like, just don't read the comments.
Yeah. I think that's great advice for everyone, because I don't read the comments anymore, especially for anything I put out. It just doesn't make any sense. It'll be something as simple as like, your camera's 4 inches off to the left. I'm like, come on. You know, like, granted, the most innocent thing in the world, but it's like, because it's faceless and it's on the internet and it's ultimately anonymous for a lot of people, it's given them the opportunity to kind of feel like they're entitled to say what the most ugly, gnarliest thing that they possibly can.
Entitled.
Yeah. The key word, entitlement.
Entitlement.
You guys were supposed to be playing in here. Now you're playing outside. I can't wait.
I mean, I don't know if that was a good idea or not. Apparently ticket sales were not fantastic.
Well, Houston.
But we sold out all the others, so fuck them.
Well, it's a big lawn. I mean, it's. I don't know if it's just that much bigger, but I know the vibes will be good.
It seems smaller than Austin.
Was it out? Were you outside in Austin as well? Oh, really? Oh.
But like, I don't know.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Also,
like, it does not.
Houston is historically a little hard for touring bands. I've just kind of learned.
Good.
Yeah.
So it's a week from the chaff. We'll come back.
You'll be here. thanks for taking time, man. This
Thank you.
has meant a lot to me. I'll just mirror what I said earlier. Your music continues to mean a lot to me.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for the safe space.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me. And I'm sorry if I'm a bit bleary-eyed.
Not at all. No, this was incredibly insightful. This was incredibly fun and incredibly meaningful for me. And I didn't even get to ask about Nigel Godrich, which is I know what everybody else wants to do. And I'm gonna spare you.
Well, I can leave you on a quote about Nigel Godrich.
Love it.
He's a horrible man. No, I'm joking. Nigel Godrich. I'll tell you one thing that he might not want people to hear. He's a very tender and sensitive man that is very dedicated to his philosophy, as all the great producers are. But underneath the student of brilliance is a very loving man.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I know him.
It's very relieving to hear because I love his work so much, including this new record. Excited to see you play tonight, man. Thank you so much again.
Fuck the king.
Fuck the king.